So this is the entry, and this is where sometimes someone would stay if needed to assist someone who is in Kayakalpa. So Kayakalpa is the name, Kayakalpa Kuti Praveshika specifically is the name of this treatment, and it's another example of how Ayurveda does things, or historically did things. This is a very rare treatment, and I'm only aware of 3 places, I believe, that I know of in India that provide this, and I've never heard of anywhere else in the world. It comes from ancient India. And this is an example of kind of the holistic nature. So one word is rasayana. And rasayana is a word that I don't believe we have a similar one in English. And it would be kind of like treatment. So the rasayana for kuti is the word for a building like this, where one individual stays. It can be for medical, it could be often in monastic life, monks and nuns, they will stay in a kuti, but it's just that general meaning. So in Kuti Praveshika, this is kind of like the full-on rasayana, where all these different things are taken into account. So as I said, we've got the actual environment, this kuti. It's built to certain specifications out of different natural mud materials with, like, this is not paint, specific size in a specific direction, and as we will see, built in a specific layout. So that takes in, then the individual going in there would first complete what's called as a panch karma, and this is kind of like the classic Ayurvedic treatment, panch meaning 5. So these are 5 different treatments, as some of the ones that I mentioned, and I feel like there are some others that I'm not remembering. And that cleanses, there's purgations, so you're taking something in at some time, it causes you to vomit back out. That's another one. Neti. Yeah, these ones. So that cleanses the body. Do that. The first time that I was here, I did that for like, I forget, 2-3 weeks at least. And people who have chronic ailments, I have met different people here who, used to have things like serious eczema or joint issues or chronic ailments like this, or just general health, or toxicity from pollution or from extended use of pharmaceuticals or things like that. These panch karmas, they'll stay here for a month or even more, and it's cleansing the body slowly. Ayurveda is like, it's a slowly thing, you know. If we look at nature, it does things slowly. It doesn't, like, if the tree is growing like this, we want to straighten it out, we take some rope and we slowly have it like this, and in nature slowly goes like this. We don't just take the rope and go like this, because it damages things. And so there are benefits, and sometimes I would like something that works really fast. If I just broke my arm, then, well, I can't say that actually. I wouldn't want the arm to be worked on really fast. I would like it to do slowly and naturally, which I've learned of. But there are other things. Let's say a bullet wound, or things where it want it fast. But if the body is full of toxins, for example, it's one issue that people can experience while fasting, and I have a decent amount of fasting experience over these years, is that if they jump right into fasting really quickly, fasting is a very big detoxifier, which means you have toxins in the body stores toxins in fat. This is one of the natural protective measures of the body. Fat generally, created to be used rarely to help people if you're in a time of very little food, and so it's being stored. And so when toxins come in, whether through pollution, air pollution, or food pollution, or skin pollution, or whatever, when toxins come in that can't be fully excreted, it's often stored in the fat. And so people who jump right into fasting or cleansing or whatever can have issues, because all of a sudden all these toxins are going into the body that they weren't prepared for. And so doing it slowly. Ayurveda, and not just Ayurveda, I mean many things. yeah, they do things in these slow and interesting ways that are really fascinating to me personally. So this is Kayakalpa, the Rasayana, where I would be staying, and then the diet that I would be receiving. So the last time the Rasayana that I had was in the West, we call it, in English, we call it gotu-kola, which is an herb, or I don't know if you call it an herb. It's a plant that is used for the brain. It's like a nutraceutical, and for memory and the mind and brain health and neuro. And so that Rasayana was special. In the morning, they would bring me fresh ground gotu-kola, manduka, it's named here, with a little bit of sesame seed, which was really nice. Gotu-kola, sesame seed. Maybe that was it. Maybe it was milk, I forget. And then for lunch and dinner, it was just rice and milk and ghee. And so that's what it was for several months. Rice, milk, ghee, and then gotu-kola. And that was the Rasayana for the food part. This time I did what is known as chywanprash, which is a very classic Indian from Ayurveda treatment, or I don't even know what you call these things. It has 37 different ingredients, natural ingredients, mostly roots and things. You know, turmeric being a root. Turmeric, if you're not familiar, is very orange, although there's actually black or blue turmeric. I just found out a few months ago. I was like, whoa, blow my mind. But turmeric is very orange, and it's one of those examples, as I was saying, of the color having lots of stuff in it. Turmeric, you get the powder. I was using turmeric. I was trying many different things for my toes, like I said, the toenails, to see during this time. I'm in there. I might as well just put all this different stuff on my toes. So I would also put turmeric powder on where the nails were, with the neem oil. You can't really see now, but like they look really yellow. That, just like when I was mowing the lawn, it's not due to fungus. Actually, all the nails fell off in there, which I've never had before. We shall see what happens. But that's because the turmeric I put on there 10 days ago or more, it stains. I mean, put it on your countertop by accident, it stains. And these days, very nicely, in the U.S. and other places, we're learning about turmeric and its benefits. I read one study years back. Turmeric is considered to be an adaptogen. An adaptogen is a natural occurring, it's a plant. There are different types of adaptogens. Jiaogulan is another one, Jiaogulan, this one that I discovered in Thailand. And there is I always want to call it ginger, but it's not ginger, although ginger is very powerful. It's that one that is used in China a lot. But there are different adaptogens. You can Google and check them out. And adaptogen means that it doesn't just do one thing. Like, depending upon your body and the issues and whatnot, it does all these different things. And turmeric is one of them. It's an incredible thing. And India uses lots of turmeric in its cooking. Now, science is now discovering things that were discovered at some point thousands of years ago and now are just like normal part of life in India. For example, to increase the bioavailability, or meaning that the body can take in more of these benefits of turmeric, modern science has discovered that if you heat it, that increases bioavailability. If you do it with a fat, because the fat helps it go through the blood-brain barrier. If you use some fresh ground pepper, and there's one other one, it has to do with like I don't know if it's malic acid or it's something with fruit, apple. I haven't really figured out how to combine that one. But in their cooking, they're cooking like this. Or nowadays in U.S. and other places, you can go to the cafe and you can get what they call a golden milk, which is milk with turmeric powder in it. And look at what is those ingredients. Turmeric with a fat, which is milk, heated up. And sometimes with spices, including pepper. And so now we see, there was actually a method to this, and it helps the body absorb this. And so turmeric is used lots in all kinds of different dishes in India. And I saw one study some years back about how there's a very low amount of Alzheimer's and dementia in these populations that were eating lots of turmeric. And they were doing the, what's it called, where someone passes away and then they open the body up, and they were looking at the brain, and they were actually tinged yellow because this turmeric is so strong. It's incredible. So this chywanprash that I'm using, or I had, now the rasayana is also for specific amounts of days. The previous one was for these several months. This chywanprash was actually for half the time. And it's this mixture of 37 different ingredients, natural ingredients. It's pretty incredible. So in the morning, for half these, like some weeks, in the morning they would bring me the chywanprash, and then in the afternoon and evening, this rasayana was less restrictive, and so it could be full food of the like natural. A lot of the foods that are grown here are eaten, and the diet is called what is called as satvic, S-A-T-V-I-C, and you can Google that. I mean, there's so much about this stuff. I don't know anything, but this is certain types of foods that you do eat and don't eat, like, you know, deep fried foods and heavy foods and things. Generally, in a place like this, and in certain groups, tribes, or I don't like to use the word caste, because in the West we have this term of, or view of the caste system of like, this is, you know, exploitive and whatnot. Not that it wasn't very harmful, but it's a different way. It's something that we don't have in the West, as far as these are just different groups of people with different historical experiences. And so certain groups, they don't eat meat, and in a place like this they wouldn't serve meat. But it's not necessarily, I don't know what the population is that does and doesn't eat meat. Lots of people are vegetarian in India. Lots of people eat meat a small amount, maybe a couple times a week or something. And then of course there are other populations, like there's a good amount of Muslims and Christians in India, and they eat plenty of meat and things. So the rasayana that I would have had here, that I did have here, in the afternoon and evening can be normal foods. But I chose to have it be rice and milk and ghee, because last time I really enjoyed that, you know, like, and it's one of the many incredible things about something like this, where when we're out in the world, the plurality of experiences, the Buddha says, the diversity, the vast range of going to the supermarket and there being 15 different types of cereal, well, probably more than that, I guess. And you know, how many items are in a regular supermarket in the town that I come from, which is like 60,000 people. It's not a large town, and you go to a supermarket there, and I have been in, I'm not sure, over 45 different, I've lived or visited over 45 different countries, and I've never been in a supermarket that's as large as the one in my hometown, which is not large, you know. It's like a normal American supermarket. And throughout Europe and all over the place, I've never been in one that is as big as what we use in the US, because it's the land of diversity, and it's the land of capitalism and things that to sell, and it's the land of processed foods, which is the large amount of what you get in a supermarket. So I've been so conditioned to think, yeah, I want all that diversity. And when I first moved to Spain for MBA back in 2017, that's what I was used to. I mean, you know, what's the thing that people get excited about is going to Costco, right? Like, Costco is the excitement, like, let's get the biggest box store. It's not the small one that's in the local town. It's the biggest box. And we can only buy these massive amounts of foods in them, and it's like an exciting thing. And so that's what I was conditioned to think. And I got to Madrid, which is the capital of Spain, and they do have supermarkets that are decently big, El Corte Inglés and things like this. No doubt, there's supermarkets everywhere in the world now, including India. But they weren't like what I was used to in the US. And I'm like, come on, I'm all about efficiency, and I want to go one place and get all the stuff and do that. And after 2-3 months, which is what I have found, that was the 1 year that was by far the longest that I'd ever been in a place outside the US. Previously, it was much more of the kind of like the classic, what we call vacation. where you go to a place for a week, not 2 weeks, that's too long. You go for like a week and pop in and out, or I had been in the military and visiting different places. So I had never been in a place for more than a couple weeks. And what I found that has subsequently I've found similarly in other places where I've stayed for months or years, like India, is after 2-3 months, there is this kind of shift of awareness. Initially, for me, you get to a place and there are some glaring differences. Like these just stand out. And if you come to India, you don't have to look far to find glaring differences of all kinds of different things. So these things stand out and they're so strong that that's all the mind sees. And it's like, what? These people are crazy. What are they doing? This doesn't make sense. I like it this way and they're doing it this way. And then slowly over time, slowly over time, that's not so jarring anymore. And we've been with people, if we're staying with more local communities, we've been with people who are local. And so we're seeing, oh, there is some method in here. And like we're getting some experience and some exposure. And we're not so like we're not so reactive to the change. And so after 2-3 months in Spain and subsequent is where like these more subtle things started coming in. I started realizing like, man, actually I really enjoy going to the shop that has the milk, and then going to the shop that has the chicken, and then going to this vegetable vendor who sells these delicious cherry tomatoes, but then I go over to this one that has the fruit, and I go to the bakery that has the bread. And it takes me an hour and a half at least, and I'm walking, but I'm happy and enjoying it. I'm meeting people and I'm seeing people and I'm just walking and I'm just interacting, versus like going into a big box and getting all this stuff in my cart and seeing 10 million different options and wanting all of them. So I really enjoyed that, but still, deeply conditioned to think that I want as many different things as possible. But the last time I was in here, I was so refreshed with just having rice, milk, and ghee. And generally what I would do, I would experiment in all different sorts of ways, but I would take the ghee, which is so rich because it's coming fresh from these cows, and I would pour it into the milk, and then I would take the milk and I would pour it into the rice and I would eat it, and it is so delicious. On my deathbed, that will be one of the things, well, I will release that sankara, I will not carry that forward, but that will be a food that I love. And it's just so refreshing. So anyway, the first period of time in here, some weeks, I had just rice and milk and ghee. And then slowly we started bringing in the foods like that. So that is some example of what a rasayana is, and the rasayana that I experienced in here. Now, darkness itself, this is one version, this kuti praveshika, and this was due to what they discovered in the past of keeping out of the sun, keeping out of the breeze. That's something specifically that when I read, you can read these old texts, and when I read that, and that was like a specific thing, keeping out of the breeze, and I still have no idea, but I assume it has a reason. They say keeping out of interactions with other people in this specific built place, having this specific food with this specific medicine, and then obviously not doing stuff. So they would also prescribe like specific amounts of mantras and things that you're chanting, which I remember when I was probably less than 12. I remember, and back then at that time my family was attending Christian church a lot, and so I remember hearing about countries where people their prayers, what we call prayers there, were mantras or things, which I didn't know that word, but you're repeating something over and over, whether it's the name of God, which in English we basically only call God in Christianity, but if even in Judaism, where the Bible originally came from, the Old Testament, they have many names for God, and not just like, I call you Samuel and I call you Sam, but like different aspects or manifestations of the way that God manifests in the divine manifests. And so similar here in India. Initially, you hear about Hinduism or some of these different like religions or traditions, and you hear, oh, they have millions of gods, or one is Ganesha and it's an elephant, and like that's so bizarre. But when you stay for some time and you connect with people doing things in these ways, you learn like, yeah, maybe in the general population it's kind of viewed like that, but historically, or in the people who are more practicing deeper, it's not about like, there's one God and he has an elephant trunk or something, and that's like the elephant God, and this one gives you money, or it's not about that. It's about these are different manifestations of different aspects of the divine, which is everywhere. Even in Christianity, God is considered to be omnipotent, omnipresent, all-powerful, and everywhere. And so if God is everywhere, then that means that this is a manifestation of God right now. This is a manifestation of God. God has all these different characteristics. And so chanting mantras, which, like I said, I remember hearing that, and I was so like, wow, these people are so backwards that they just say, I pray to God, and I talk to him, and I have this relationship with him, and like that. But what I didn't understand, what I learned later as I began on this journey, like I said, studying neuroscience more and habit change and things, as I said, whatever we ingest through our senses is stored somewhere in my thinking, in my understanding. And so if I am interested in having a certain type of life, such as a happy one, or a loving one, or a peaceful one, then I'm more cautious with what I'm ingesting. And so previously, I believed, as many people do, if we look at box office ratings and things, or pop music, that it doesn't really matter what I'm ingesting through my eyes or my ears. Like I watch, I used to love action movies, and I used to love certain types of hip hop or country music, Nothing against any of these things. I'm just saying, for me personally, currently, I'm interested in having a life that is happy, peaceful, and content. Like, I think we can sum it up in those words. And so if I also believe these things, which I first learned through book knowledge and from learning from others, and subsequently I've experienced in my own life, then to play Grand Theft Auto, where it's a game about killing people, or PUBG, where it's a game about killing other humans, or watching most of the box offices, which are about killing humans, or making fun of humans, or having unhealthy, codependent, abusive relationships in some way. Or I listen to music which are about that, or substances. That's of course, there's 4. I'm not interested in doing that anymore because I believe that it's impacting me in some way. And vice versa, we can go about it the opposite, which is how I discovered affirmations. And I don't really call them affirmations anymore. I don't do it in that affirmation sorts of way of like Tony Robbins. And in the past, I received benefit from Tony for sure. It's not where I'm at currently, but he's big into these every day in every way is getting better and better. My Tony people out there, they know this. But now I make them a bit more personal, and I put them in places that I'll be reminded and whatnot. So it's similar with mantras. And these deep wisdom of the past, in the past, these different countries, especially in this area, but probably also ones that we don't even remember anymore, like Egypt. I forget how long. We're around for like thousands of years. The U.S. has been around since 1776, and we're experiencing lots of challenge. We've got lots of incredible things as far as technology and whatnot, but we're experiencing lots of challenge. And some of these countries or groups, they were around for thousands of years, which is just mind-boggling, which means they figured something out and they didn't just crumble. And part of that was that they had a very different focus on things that were not in the physical world. So in capitalism or other isms that are more focused on the physical world. And again, no judgment. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I don't do things, I try not to do things these days of like, this is better than that. I just look at me personally, what is my desired end state? And my desired end state is happiness, peace, contentment. And so I look at these different things that I'm doing, that I'm saying, that I'm thinking. Will those, it's easy to say like, well, it doesn't really matter if I listen to this pop song and yeah, like it's talking about relationships in this way that's like, you know, you are my, a classic one, like from childhood. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. That is a brain virus that I was ingested as a small child. And it's like nice, like sweet, it's a nursery rhyme, you know, but think about that. You're my only sunshine. Don't take it away. What kind of message is that saying? What kind of relationship would we have if that is the relationship? Like, very codependent, very controlling. Doesn't matter what is healthy for you or for me. It's about attachment and all of these things. And so in the current world that I grew up in, the values are about more physical reality, physical world of items and things and people and relationships. And money, obviously, you know, in the current system is money is a carrier of value. It makes things easy to be able to, I don't have to carry a bunch of coconuts to trade for mangoes. I can use money. But money has, in my opinion, taken on this, it's become the god of like God. Talk to so many people, and I used to think the same, like, yeah, it's not about food, water, shelter. It's about like money is above all of those, and I need to be worried about them. And so we haven't gone as much into things that aren't visible because you can't sell those that much. Can't buy them either. And so these other cultures, they had, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that they lasted for thousands of years, and they were able to write these massive, huge works of depth that are like mind-boggling 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago, things that we don't even understand right now. And I think that was in part due to understanding the way that the mind and the, we can call it spirituality, or these words have baggage currently, but things that aren't visible. We all know they exist. You know, what is it that I feel when I'm with my mother or my father or my lover or my child? I feel something that's not visible, and I'm feeling it. And, or when I'm experiencing strong emotions, you know, of the other types. These are not visible, but we know they exist. But for whatever reason, we've got kind of disconnected with them. And these past, they had different ways of going about it. And one way of understanding, they understood what mantras and things like this could do for the brain and could help point you in that direction. So I've never experienced it. It's not my current practice, but I do know people, and in certain, like in Tibetan Buddhism or in different sadhu or Indian traditions, people do millions, hundreds of millions. I've even read 1 billion mantras, just doing it over and over. And this is changing the brain. And when you're doing it fully, you're going into a flow state, as we call them in modern Western world, a flow state where different things switch on and off, and it becomes a totally different experience. So that would be another part of the Rasayana. And that I was not expecting to talk about as much, but I have. So I will end this one, and then we'll go into the Kuti, and we'll talk more about darkness.